Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode.
Summer is here, which hopefully means slower days, some time off, and more family time. With this in mind, we're doing a summer series of shorter podcasts with some quick thoughts to encourage you. We hope these are fun for you to listen to while you enjoy your summer. So after we recorded our podcast, and you guys listened to it obviously, about the cultural differences between the United States and the UK.
Well, do we speak the same language?
Do we speak the same language? I guess we didn't go tons into
that, but that's so far been one of the most listened to one, which is cool.
Yes, and you guys actually asked to hear more about that. So in this summer series, we thought we would do just two quick differences between the US and the UK that we have found funny, or that we were like, oh, and that.
Yeah.
So one is kind of a silly one, but it's actually something we find very cool here. But it took us a while to realize, and we actually probably missed out on some cool opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool.
So that is and there's probably a formal UK name for this. So I'm sorry that we're just going to call them public pathways. I don't know if that's what you would call them here, but the idea is that I'll use our trip. We went to Wales and we stayed in an Airbnb in a home that was kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Not kind of.
It was.
It was.
Well, I mean, there were some other homes around, but barely.
But barely.
Yeah. And so we were in this valley of a bunch of mountains, and you could see the sea. It was gorgeous. Very cold, but gorgeous. And so we would walk. I mean, the driveway itself was really, really, I say driveway. It was not even it was the
road that
went to the house. And it was just so pretty. And so we would walk up and down this road and things like that. And we would look off and we'd see this little wood sign, and it showed a person walking and it said path. And we were like, oh, that's interesting. And, you could tell that people had walked on it and stuff. But then we would look and we're like, but I don't think that's this Airbnb's property. Yeah, that looks like it goes through someone else's. Yeah, and there was one place you could see further in distance that looked like the path went, but it was actually through where the sheep are grazing. And we're like, why? You can't walk there. So we didn't. Come to find out, we should have.
Or we could have.
We could have.
Not should, but we could have.
We could have. We probably missed out on some really cool walks. And that's because they do it differently here.
Yeah, I mean, I think they create these pathways everywhere, in a sense, that are meant for you to walk and to explore and to walk around. I think everyone has people have property here, but I don't remember exactly what it is specifically. So someone can probably share with us if you listen to this from the UK. But there is some sort of agreement or something that happened as they were divvying up land, or all that, how that works out. But anyways, there are these public pathways that you have to have through places.
So you could have a place where,
right?
For instance,
I don't know if we fully understand.
We still don't fully understand it, because it seems very strange to us as Americans.
Yeah.
Because in the States, if you've lived in the States for a while, you would know this. Where we would go hiking or on walks and stuff would be a state park or a national park, one of the two.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's a local park or something like that. But you could not, even if you lived in the country where there's more land and stuff like that, you generally wouldn't go on a walk and walk through people's land. You wouldn't walk through their field. Or,
because most of the time you'll see a keep out or private property and no trespassing.
Trespassers will be shot. Literally, you do see signs that say that. There's just in general is this feel this is that person's property and you don't set your feet on it. And so it's trespassing and it's all these different things, or trespassers will be prosecuted. I mean, there's all those kinds of things all over. Where here, you'll see like it could be a field of something that they're growing, but then there's a pathway in the middle of it for you to walk through to get to continue on this walking path that you're on. And so it's fascinating to us. It sounds like that's funny because when we talk to friends here, they're like, why is that weird? Like that's
and I think
just
there's
normal.
I think you can get maps and stuff that have these pathways on them.
And there's this idea of like the Great British Walk. And that took us a while, a couple years to be like, I don't understand what people are talking about until like, it's like you think of like Christmas or something like that. And like you have a big meal and then you go on a walk. And this is where like wellies come into play. And like some of the images that I think us as Americans sometimes have of like these walks.
Of British
and,
culture.
British culture and dogs running in front and stuff like that. But that's real. I think some stuff that you see, like it does not snow in London. I'm so sorry for everyone who watches videos and movies. And it's beautiful snow piled up in London. It did a long, long time ago. It snows occasionally here, and when it does, it causes mass chaos because no one knows what to do with it.
I think since we've been here for almost 5 years, and it literally has maybe snowed a total of 6 inches, if that.
Oh, I don't even know if it's done that.
So,
but yeah. So, but with the walking though, it's taken us a while to get used to it too, because there's something that's just ingrained when you've lived and grown up in a place that's very much like you don't trespass on other people's property. And we're not technically, we're on this public space that is through someone else's property, but it's been this weird mind shift.
I mean, our house that we used to have in the States, like the sidewalk there or pavement here, you know, it ended at a certain point outside of our neighborhood. So
we didn't want to walk to certain places
because you'd be walk. I mean, yeah, like the school that our kids went to was literally probably a 5-minute walk from our house. But because there was no sidewalk there, you just wouldn't walk there because there wasn't a quote unquote public walkway to there.
To get there, you had to go through somebody's
property.
It
was just like, yeah. And so I think, but yeah, that's just not the case here.
So that's another funny,
they just do walks. Like,
yeah,
it's really
and they do
fun.
walks well.
It's really fun.
Like, and it doesn't matter the weather either. That's why people have wellies. That's why people, something I can think of, and this is, I guess, to reference this. Obviously, it's very different when you're the queen and stuff. But if you watch The Crown at all, they often go on a walk. Obviously, those areas are probably like, I'm going to guess, there's a lot of those are like, this is the queen's space. You don't go on there.
Oh, well, sure.
And it's her property.
There's still. Yeah.
But if you can picture it a little bit, like that it is like space that you can, public space you can walk on and stuff like that. And
like, I imagine it like, at least from where we were in the States, there's just tons of farmland. And like in between each farm, you know, I imagine there'd be like a path. Like that's kind of what it would be like.
And when we say path, we don't mean like, I think of, again, when you are at like a state park or something in the States, the path is kind of wide and stuff like that. It's not always the case with these ones here.
Yeah.
Like they are just like a place you can tell that people have walked there and you keep that area clear and that kind of thing. But it's not always like the widest of areas and stuff either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it because then you get to see so much more. Yeah. It just gives you a different feel and it makes walks much more accessible no matter where you are at.
So there's probably a bigger story to why they have these. So
we'll need to
if you know that, let us know for sure. But
there's probably history
we love
behind
it.
Well,
we absolutely love it. It's a really cool thing about living here and the opportunity to take these fun walks.
Yes. So the second thing we thought we would talk about, and this is probably could go into so much stuff, but we're just our funny experience because people in the UK think it's hilarious when we talk about this. And they're also shocked also, but is healthcare here. So when we say it's free healthcare, it comes out of taxes and stuff like that. We do, as people who are on visas currently, we do pay like a health surcharge with our visa for each and every single one of us. However, that fee that we pay for the 3 years of our visa is less than what we paid after 2 months of paying healthcare in the United States. So that gives you any...
As a family of 5.
Yes, as a family of 5.
Yeah.
And so with that, the first time that we had something medical happen that we needed to go to here, it's called the A&E. In the States, it would be called the ER. And especially as small business owners in the States, like our health insurance, because we had to find a certain kind and stuff, it was expensive. I have no other way of saying it. So when something would happen, unless it was dire need, like we really wouldn't choose not to take a kid to the ER. Whereas here, if you're not sure, I mean, you can call first of all and talk to somebody.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
another really cool
another
thing. They have
thing.
like a cool like hotline kind of thing where you can
There's, like-
call and describe like how you're feeling, what's going on, or what's the situation, and then they direct you to something if you need it, or they advise
Yeah, like
you
we
and
had our
stuff, which
daughter
is cool.
fell pretty hard at school several months ago and hit her head really hard. And so like she came home and she did fall asleep, which was neither of ours fault. Like she fell asleep, which she shouldn't have. And then so I called, instead of calling like what our equivalent of 911 would be, they have another number that you call that's for less emergencies, but you might need to talk to a doctor or a nurse to see if it's an emergency.
Yeah.
And so I was able to talk to a nurse who basically had me wake Veda up and then check all these different signs of her. And then a doctor called me a few minutes later and then called me 2 hours later to check on how she was doing. And I didn't have to bring her in someplace. But when we have had to bring kids into places, because we've had we've had things we've had to go to, because that's just is what happens.
Yeah.
But I had an experience. I think the first person we brought was Jude or Zane. And after everything had been taken care of, and they were like, okay, great. We'll keep in contact. We'll check up with you in a couple days. And we were leaving. I stopped at like the desk, if you will, that however they check people in and stuff like that, and was waiting in the queue and said, when I got up there, I was like, oh, where do I pay? Or do you guys send us a bill? Or how does that work? And she looked at me really weird. She was like, how long have you lived here? And I think at the time it'd been like 6 months or something. And she was like, you don't have to do that. Like, your GP will like follow up with you and check if everything is okay, but you don't pay. And we were like, okay. And then walked out. It was the weirdest
That's very
feeling.
strange. Yeah.
It was so strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even to in the States, like, yeah, I mean, I remember there were probably multiple times where we were like, is this really that serious of an issue?
Mm-hmm.
Like, should we go or not? Or do you think this is just going to pass?
Well, because the health insurance we were under, again, because we didn't have a
we were
lot of
small.
options.
Yeah, we didn't have.
It was, easily. You
was
walk
gonna
into the
cost
ER,
us.
it was going to cost us $500 at least, depending what the outcome was of it.
Yeah.
So that was always like do they really need stitches?
So again, when we
or
moved
not?
here, it was like, do you really need to go and get that checked out or not? And then again, when we had that experience, it was like, oh, like we can bring them here if we are a little uneasy about the situation, and it's okay, and all stuff.
It took away a lot of the stress.
It did
for
take
sure.
a lot, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's just one of those.
And again, we don't
It
want to
could go down a whole route with
we
it,
don't
for
want to
sure.
go down that rebel trail with all that and like, what's right and what's wrong with all of that kind of stuff or whatever. But again, like culturally for us, like that's been a huge change for us.
Yeah, there's all kinds of, if you Google, I think there's all kinds of like videos that people in the UK have done of where they're funny actually, where people have gone around and asked British people and have said, how much do you think this costs in the United States when it comes to healthcare? And like they guess, and then they tell them the real amount. And they're like, what? That is, I swear that always ends up being a route that we end up going down with friends from different countries. They're like, does it really cost this much to have this done? And that kind of thing. So yeah, it's just an interesting observation, but also very funny that like we've put ourselves in some situations where we're like, how much is this going to cost?
Yeah.
And then realize,
it's
never mind.
already included in what we,
Yeah, exactly. So that was just another cultural difference too that we have found to be like helpful, but also like, oh, this is different.
Mm-hmm. Especially as a small business owner too. I mean, again, because of what we experience in the States, it just was kind of like, oh, okay, we can do that. It's okay. And again, like you said, it takes the nervousness and the anxiousness away from like, should we really do this or not? Like, okay, let's just get it checked out and see. Like,
another one that I will touch on because it can be touched on very briefly, but it could cause a lot of debate, is tea. And
tea.
More importantly, I think there are a lot of Americans that drink tea.
Yeah.
But it is the idea of what you put in your tea and how the amount that you put in it. So in general, I say most, I'm making a generalization. I realize a lot of British people do drink coffee, but most drink tea. And when they drink their tea, they take milk in it. And so when we had this,
most do.
I'm not, obviously I'm not making a whole statement about every single British person, but the fact that the first time somebody asked me for a white tea, and I was thinking from my American perspective, like, and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry we don't have any white tea," because I was thinking white herbal tea, and we don't have that. And what they meant is they wanted a tea with a lot of milk in it.
Yep.
And even when they say a tea with milk, they still mean a tea with a lot of milk in it. And like, I do drink it with almond milk, which makes people, they really don't understand that. I do have milk in my tea.
I don't understand that.
And when I say tea, I mean like hot black tea. I wouldn't put milk in like an herbal tea or something like that. And that is just a funny thing that I have not made the adjustment because I feel like I cannot make a proper tea for somebody because of the way I take it versus we're also dealing with lots of different cultures. So like other cultures, it's pretty much milk with a splash of tea. And then there's the opposite.
Sometimes sugar,
sometimes not. 2 spoonfuls. What exactly does that mean? What size spoonful are we talking about?
So normally we make the tea.
We make the tea and put the sugar and the milk out.
They do what they need to do with it.
Exactly. That we're like, here.
And we can just use we're Americans and I don't want to mess up your tea. So you do you. You do you. And the fact that when I first moved here, if we were out, I have a friend and if she's listening, she'll know who she's talking about. She made fun of me so much because I would go up and I would order a hot tea. And she finally was like, Maya, there's not another tea. You don't have to say you want it hot. Yeah. And I'm like, but I do. Yeah. Because in the States, you have to say hot tea or you get like iced tea or something like that. What?
Or are you going to say my experience?
Our experience. So we lived here for 2 years and then we go back to the States. And what do? The first thing you do when we go out for breakfast, you ordered a tea.
I ordered it. So I saw on their menu, they were like home brewed teas. And I was like, amazing. And we're having breakfast. And so there was an English breakfast tea. And I was like, well, I am curious because we've gotten used to English breakfast tea. So I'm curious. I was like, I'll have the English breakfast tea. And they bring it to me. It's in a styrofoam cup, a tall styrofoam cup with tea in it, with ice and a lid and a straw. And I was like, no.
Yep.
That's not what I want to drink in the morning.
And did you drink that?
I think I took a couple sips. I couldn't do it. Like if you can picture, Yeah. And I sent a picture quickly to my friend. I was like, this is why I say hot tea because this is what I ended up with. And this is not what I wanted to start my morning with.
So we actually got acclimated to just saying tea while we lived here for 2 years. And then when we went back to the States for a bit,
it messed
we
us
forgot.
Up. I don't know how we went.
I feel like we could do a podcast by itself just on tea.
Oh, we could.
Like the nuances and all that.
Figuring out the tea or what is builder's tea. That took me forever when somebody asked for a builder's tea. I was like, what am I building? What am I doing? Yes. I don't know how we go from pathways to healthcare to tea. But that's what it's like when you move to a different culture. It's all swimming at you all at the same time. And you're like, what's here? What? I don't understand this one. I don't understand that one. I don't understand this one.
That's really true. And there's plenty more that we could probably share.
There's plenty more that we could share with this for sure. But there's our 3 quick, very random, very different, doesn't make sense together. I mean, tea is out of everything. I mean, I guess that's always the thing. But
we'd love to hear how you guys feel about these 3 things. Do you love taking walks on these pathways if you're here in the UK?
What questions do you have about healthcare stuff? I don't want to know.
That
could open some
up
things.
Way too much stuff.
What are you curious about? We might answer it or not.
Yeah, maybe. And then definitely, how do you take your tea?
Or do you think if there's a TV show called Ted Lasso and it's hilarious, that'll be a whole nother time that we go into that. That's a whole podcast. But he talks about it being dirty brown water of drinking the tea. Yep, I don't feel that way. I happen to really like tea.
No, we love tea, but yeah,
a lot of Americans do.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
there's so much in that show.
We're gonna have to. Oh yeah, that'll be. Anyways, we'll go on and on about this for sure if we could. But there's some other funny cultural differences. Tell us the ones you want to hear about or the ones that you've experienced. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Laurent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Laurent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.